Welcome back. All right. Here's our next day of mythology. We're going to talk about some monsters today. So first, please make sure that if you have fallen behind in Google Classroom, that you do spend some time these next 4 days or so to get caught up. We totally understand that this asynchronous model is very tech heavy. It involves a lot of time on the computer. You've got to use various interfaces. You've got to check a lot of different things in Google Classroom. So if you are having any technical issues or you have questions about your assignments, of course, please email. But know that next week is a full 5-day school week. So if you have fallen behind, the time to get caught up is now. All right. First, before we get into our new monsters for today, a little bit of a review. In your last assignment, we talked about Chaos and Gaia and Uranus. And as you can see already in today's Google form, you went back and reviewed those videos, the notes you took, the first drafts you wrote, the artwork that you produced last time, and of course, paragraphs that you typed up, and you created a new piece of art going over Chaos, Gaia, and Uranus, and you've already uploaded that piece of new artwork in today's assignment. So now on to some new content. Gaia and Uranus now exist. We have the Earth, we have the sky, and life is being created. That is plant life, animal life, and monsters. So what's really, really interesting about Greek mythology is how things never usually work out well at first. That is, we don't see Zeus yet. There's no Zeus. We don't even have Kronos or Rhea yet. We don't have gods that look like humans yet. So think about it this way, like oftentimes first time you try something, it doesn't really work out very well. And that's kind of embedded in the Greek story. So first, these things, they're called the Hecatoncheires. Hecaton in Greek means 100, and chair means hand. That's the stem that we get like chiropractor and surgery from, and it means hand. So they are the 100-handed monsters. And then we're going to have the Cyclopes, which you should be familiar with, and then only after them will we get the Titans. So let's talk about these Hecatoncheires first. They're monstrous, right? Like when you look at them, you see, that's a monster. So let's talk about what a monster is. Why does it appear monstrous to us? Many would say because it looks different. It looks strange. We're not used to it. However, there might be things that you see all the time that you still consider to be monstrous, despite the fact that you're accustomed to them. Maybe it's spiders. Maybe it's other sorts of insects. Maybe it's something really, really big. What is it that makes you afraid of a monster? So, if we look at the Hecatoncheires in a few other artistic, wait for it. All right. In a couple other artistic versions here. All right. They're very difficult to draw. Okay, so they have 100 hands, which means they need to have 100 arms, which means that those arms need to all be coming out of shoulders. And in addition to that, they have 50 heads, for each set of 50 arms, because 50 times 2 is 100, right? So how many can you draw? You'll find that this is almost impossible to have that many hands, again 100 hands on 100 arms, coming out of the same shoulders, and also 50 heads all springing from the same neck. Now, you might just be saying, well, obviously it's a monster, but what is it that's so monstrous about it? Almost everyone has this like gut instinct, like this is a monster, I don't like it, Okay, so this is going to be really difficult for you to kind of draw, which you're going to have to do in a little bit here, but how do you get all those heads coming out of that neck? How do you get all those arms coming out of it? How many can you actually draw before you run out of space? Most artists give up after maybe 10 heads, 12 heads. how many sets of arms can you really get in there before you literally run out of space? So you might be wondering, how could the Greeks believe this was a real thing if we can't even draw it? Again, in these early stories, they're very supernatural, very inhuman. You might consider it to be allegorical or metaphorical, that it wasn't really real, but it's like a concept. Okay, and this one, the artist gave up after about 4 sets of arms and heads. Okay, this one is a lot more, right? So maybe a mound of heads coming out of the neck, arms coming out of everywhere, and you can't quite see the origin point of every single set of arms. Perhaps they have weapons. Why not? Monstrous, though. It is supposed to be monstrous to you. The Greeks definitely considered these monsters. And again, they didn't explain. It's just so obvious. But again, why? Why do we inherently, gut instinct, see something and say, that's a monster? Something to think about. All right, how many arms can you get coming out of that body again? So this one might be the one we want to focus on a little bit here. Now, the Hecatoncheires are giants. That is, they're humongous. That is, that they're many times larger than the average human. Just like the Cyclopes will be, just like the Titans will be. Titanic size, very, very large, gigantic. And maybe it's a jumbled mess. But going back to this, and again, this is our most basic sort of elementary version, so that if you're in the 3rd or 4th grade, you could start to try to imagine what one of these monsters might look like. And Gaia and Uranus are also gonna kind of view these as monsters. That is, this is like the first try at life, and it's not really working out too well. So let's think about these Hecatoncheires. What makes them monstrous to us? Like, why are we perceiving it in that way? And let's attempt our first draft of what we're gonna make them look like. So again, unleash your creativity, put your own spin on things. All right, Hecatoncheires.